sorry, across the country and the globe. The Amicus Curie is a dream online platform which aims at proliferating legal knowledge and providing an indigenous and ingenious understanding and cognizance of various fields of law to make sure that legal knowledge and experience penetrates to every nook and corner of the ever-growing legal fraternity. Through ambitious and studious legal brains across the country, the Amicus Curie aims at providing valuable contribution to the contemporary legal issues and developments in the ubiquitous field of law to the masses. This is what the Amicus Curie wants to achieve and works towards. And I am your moderator for today's session as well. So now I would like to invite to Mr. Rupam Banerjee, who is the founder of the Amicus Curie, to to introduce to you all Miss Aishwarya Bhati, who is the speaker of today's national webinar on the subject, should censorship be mandatory for OTT platforms? So Mr. Rupam, please can you take over?
Thank you, Anika, for the honor. Am I audible to you?
Yes.
Thank you. Aishwarya ma'am has been a trailblazer litigator. She is the youngest woman advocate to be designated as the senior advocate by the Supreme Court of India. She is also has the distinction of being one of the youngest additional Solicitor General of India and the fourth woman to ever occupy this coveted position ever. Aishwarya ma'am has also been passionately fought for the women's rights, children's rights, and the rights for the person with disabilities, and also been an advocate for anti-tobacco litigation. She has led from the front for the rights of women officers in Indian Air Force, Indian Navy, and Indian Army. For as per consideration for permanent commission and command position, Aishwarya ma'am has been instrumental in leading the battle against the mighty tobacco industry on issues of larger pictorial warning, plain packaging, and stronger tobacco regulation. Now, without wasting much of the time, I'd like to request ma'am to please take on from here for today's topic.
Thank you, Rupamji. Thank you, Anika ji, and the entire team of Amicus Curie. When I got the invite, I was initially wondering, has the spelling been wrong? Because this is not the spelling that we are familiar with of Amicus Curie in the legal practice. And then I was explained by Rupamji why, what is the whole purpose and the whole background behind Amicus Curie. I apologize for the slight delay because of which we started late. So it gives me real, immense pleasure and delight to be here with you all, young students of law. I'm told some young professionals and students of law, fellow students of law, on discussing an interesting topic. So I had already requested Rupamji that I would like to have this more as an interactive session rather than just a monologue from my side. So I will put the foundation. I will, put my thoughts before you, and I will request that all of you keep your thoughts, your comments, your questions, everything ready so that we can have this session as a more interactive session. Now, the topic that is assigned to me today is, should censorship be mandatory in OTT platforms? That's the topic. I think first thing we have to understand that there is a difference between censorship and regulation. So what we understand as the censor board for movies, we should understand that it is actually called the Central Board of Film Certification. So what is required is that it has to fulfill the certification norms for a movie to be prescribed as a universal, as a, with parental guidance, so, or adult movie, basically to ensure that the person who is viewing the movie is aware of what the content of the movie is, and can you hear me? Okay, sorry, I
Yes,
think I
ma'am.
lost network for a second there. So I think the important aspect to understand is that the regulation rules, the certification rules are aimed around the viewer's right to know, and also promoting the semblance of some regulations so that there the rule of there is no violation of the legal regime that exists in the country. And that is how. Now let me ask you some questions. Do you think that the Broadcasting Content Complaints Council existed before the broadcasting of cable networks, etc., was there? We are all aware that cable TV is something that started recently. I mean, technology has grown one step at a time. Nobody could imagine that there would be something like an OTT platform. So let me take you a little back. Do you think there was any regulation regulating the television before the television was there? Of course, in India, television came very late, but after the second half of the previous century, was there any regulation for the cable networks before they were there, when it was just a single regime for many years and decades, that there was only Doordarshan that was available on television? There was no regulation that was available for cable TV networks. Of course, newspapers have been long existing, but newspapers, print media, publishing houses, they are all subject to a regulation. And so whether OTT platforms, which is now, it's not like OTT platforms don't exist in the legal regime. It is not like OTT platforms were envisaged and meant to not be covered by any legislation or any rule of law or any boundaries of law, contours of law. It is just that OTT platforms is a advent of technology, and it has developed in areas where there are gaps with regard to regulatory mechanism. And also OTT platform essentially is different. I've been explained by experts that the difference between OTT platform and the regular television and other mediums is that this is a pull format, and the regular television is your push format. So you don't have a choice on the television as to which program you want to watch. There are timings for that. You watch what you want to watch. But here, it is a pull format. There's really no time, etc. You have to pull out the program that you want to watch, and that is the basic difference. So there are two sets of areas. OTT platform cannot be compared with our regular television, with our regular cable, etc., because of the format that it has. Now, OTT platform also is a platform that we have seen has been a very creative platform. One has seen very, very interesting, of course, COVID, the whole year gave us enough time, opportunity to explore what was available, to watch things of our interest. So across generations, from watching programs, maybe my generation enjoyed, my friends enjoyed programs like The Crown, which gave you an insight into the inner workings of the British royal family, something which has been completely, in secrecy. I see a lot of, young kids watching, of course, entertainment programs, a lot of legal programs, a lot of, I'm forgetting the names, but there are a lot of programs around legal practice. Of course, a lot of them are fictional programs, but it gives you a very interesting insight on how the legal system works in different jurisdictions. Some of them are US based, some of them are historical dramas that have been, portrayed again, and some very interesting programs like How Things Work. The whole reality about how social media works. These were some very, very interesting options that have become available. Netflix has given that opportunity to small producers, small directors, niche boutique people to find a place for their work, because this was essentially, I mean, there now we have seen programs and series and movies and all of this specifically produced for Netflix, for Amazon, for Disney, and it has, frankly, it has the we are spoiled for choice, if I can use that phrase, in whatever we want to watch across generations, across timelines, across the urban rural divide, across the areas that we are in. I mean, it really caters to the diversity that our culture has, the pluralism that our culture has, that there is no one size fit all bill and everything is available for everyone. So then would it mean that if we have a regulation, that would be an end to the creativity? Would it mean that we will no longer be, we will no longer have access to this content and this incredible choice of watching what across different genres? I think it is important for us to understand that regulation is not antithetical to artistic creativity, artistic freedom, artistic liberty. Had that been the case, art has not existed just in movies. Art has existed across centuries, from the time immemorial, from the beginning of our journey as a civilized society. We have seen art forms on, in forms of, on the walls of famous temples, in walls of caves. Art was a huge aspect of, literature, dance, music, and we have a rich cultural heritage, so rich that I often think that India cannot be compared to any other country, and then I think that India can really not be compared with any other continent also, because the number of languages, the number of the different gods that we believe in, the different culture that we have, different clothes that we wear, different food that we enjoy, and incredible stories to tell in every small hamlet of India. If you were to explore, COVID has also given us many of us, a lot of opportunity to explore areas close to our home, which we took for granted, and we have explored such beauty, of around us, of India, which has been incredible. So did we see that got clouded because of the system of regulation? Let us see what are the kinds of regulation that are there. The regulation ensures that things which are illegal. So one aspect is crime. There, social media again has become a platform which does not really have any regulation. OTT does not have, of course, they're mulling it. They're mulling not just in India. This is a debate that is going on across the world. This is a debate that is at the fulcrum of personal liberties, because now one is seeing social media with all its benefits can also become a very dangerous medium. So it is an important discussion and debate that is going on what kind of regulation. So one aspect is, one has seen that the impact of no regulation can be an impetus to crime. And what kinds of crime? There are instances where child pornography offenses, against sexual offenses against women are portrayed, shown, and sometimes actual offenses are recorded and shown, etc. So that is one aspect of, or crime being incited, crime being committed, crime being shown. Now all of this is an offense in the IPC. Incitement of crime is also an offense in the IPC. Abetting a crime is an offense. So how do that is one aspect of it. Second aspect of it is, you know copyright infringements, intellectual property. If there is not going to be any regulation, how does really somebody take care of these aspects of somebody violating the copyright, somebody violating intellectual property rights, etc. So this is a very important aspect, because you can't allow other artists things to be taken without their consent, without taking their nod on and completely, keeping them on board on particular subjects. The third aspect is statutory regulations. You would have seen that there is, when you have uh, drug scenes or alcohol, smoking, when this is portrayed on the screen, then there is a disclaimer. There is a statutory warning that is played. It is not really a disclaimer, it's a statutory warning that is played to, so that the the ill aspects of drugs, tobacco, alcohol, this is also portrayed along with the scenes wherever they are required to be portrayed in view of the directive creativity. Now, if we are okay to let all this go, I've just given you some examples of what kind of violations can happen when you are reaching out to masses. See, please understand, this is not a private conversation. This is not a private medium that we are having you're having a FaceTime call with your friend and, or your colleague and having a discussion. This is a platform that is available to public, and there will be all kinds of public watching this. And as a public medium, should it require to be responsible? Should it require to adhere to the law of the land? And if we don't want regulation, then is it fair for us to continue the regulation for cinema, theater, other forms of art, television, cable TV? Let it be what the management of these media houses decide. Let that continue. Anyways, the content is anyways what the management decides, but within the contours of the regulatory mechanism that is there. Now let's get a little out of, I've seen a lot of debates recently. I've been part of some discussions where people have said, oh, you bring in regulation and we won't have all this available to us. We won't have such amazing programs available to us to watch. I am often, I sometimes take the point to remind them that the reason why rule of law came, rule of law is now the order of the day. I mean, it's the order of the world. There's no going back on rule of law. We don't want to go back into the era where there was no rule of law and, might was right and there was survival of the fittest. Do we want to now, in the world that we live in today, if we are going to completely discard the rule of law for particular mediums which are impacting and reaching out to large areas of public, which are not private mediums, then again, the same concepts of survival of the fittest, might is right, all that will come back. Now, in commerce also, we want healthy commerce. See, might is right is not going to be in the same form that it existed, that whoever had the physical brute strength is going to, that will be the survival of the fittest. Now, today's scenario is very different. When we talk about might, the might means economic might. It means commercial might. It means the might, the capacity to influence, reach out. These are the strengths that define the mighty in today's world. And that might is going to completely take over. Now let me take you to some of the recent examples. We saw what happened on the Capitol Hill, the beginning of January in the United States of America, Washington, Capitol Hill, something that a country that is self-proclaimed and believed also by large parts of the world to be the strongest democracy of the world. That's how they at least they are the oldest democracy. Their constitution is 230, 40 years old. So that democracy, and I'll remind you to this executive order that was passed by President Trump during his presidency, bringing social media into the contours of regulation. And there's a huge hue and cry that, you can't bring in social media. You're going to kill social media if you regulate it. don't, government should try to keep off and keep away from things. And not, we may have our different opinions on policies of Trump or his style of governance and his style of presidency. Of course, what happened on Capitol Hill is something that nobody can, nobody can subscribe to. Nobody can say that this should happen in an act. In fact, it exposed the vulnerability of the strongest democracy, where the very change of power, the exchange of hands of power after a democracy, after an election where the will of the people was reflected and that will was sought to be sabotaged. um, Insurrection is the word that was used for the impeachment of the president. But we are not used to this. We see that our outgoing prime minister brings a bouquet of flowers for the incoming prime minister or chief minister, and the outgoing one brings a bouquet of flowers. But do you know, our twin country, the country that got independence along with us, and we shared our resources, the country I'm talking about, Pakistan, that country, for the last 74 years of its existence, along with India, I'll give you a very interesting statistic. Not even a single head of the state who was elected to power, elected to the highest office, has been removed by an election. Please see the profoundness of this statistic. That means not even a single elected head of the state is removed by election. They were either removed by coup, armed mutiny, rebellion, by the army, by the SIT made of army, killed in office. That has, so what we take for granted as a democracy is something that is not so much for granted in a lot of other democracies also. I mean, it is fragile, it is vulnerable. And can we allow these mediums now what happened after that, after the attempt to insurrection, so to speak, was also something that became a matter of debate. We all saw that, all the Facebook users saw the message of Mark Zuckerberg, that was a long message on how they were banning President Trump. Twitter banned President Trump. He was still the president of United States. And then there was a very interesting debate that started, that what President Trump did or what was his role is not, it's a matter of, it cannot, of course, it's a matter of debate for the impeachment that has ended in an acquittal, but it is not something, if there was a role, that it is not something that anybody can try to justify. But can we allow the management of social media houses to decide who to ban? Or should there be a regulatory mechanism? Another example, Google has had a deal with companies of Rupert Murdoch for hosting news on their platforms. A similar, argument was made by Australia. The Australian Prime Minister told Google that, you are hosting the content of news, that's all very fine, but news agencies who are investing a lot of finances and resources in getting those news, and you just host it, you don't pay for any of it, you don't pay these news agencies. And if you host them, they are losing their advertising revenue, because now Google gets the revenue, the advertising, not those news agencies whose news articles Google is just hosting. Now, Google, all these years, I mean, we are addicted to Google. Google has changed our life. But do we want Google to be irresponsible? Do we want our news media houses to be killed? Then who's going to pay for the correspondents who go out in the field, the cameramen, the entire news agency, etc.? You can't not have news. Then you are killing everything else, the entire ecosystem that existed. And Google tried to tell Australian Prime Minister, he said, if you are going to force us to pay the news agencies, they were saying, we are not, we are just hosting it. We are just intermediary. We are just hosting it. We don't do anything. But the working and commerce of it was because Google was hosting it. Google was getting all the advertisement revenue, and the commerce of the news agencies was going down. And Google actually responded to Australia by saying that we are going to shut our operations in Australia, so Australia won't have Google anymore. And you know how the Australian Prime Minister reacted? He said, "We don't react to threats," that Google had said. Now, see the might of these social media platforms. These are, and I've gone a little, maybe gone a little away from the OTT platforms. But what I'm telling you is mediums which have the inherent capacity, capability, potential to reach out to large masses and build huge commercial, entities. They are in a position today to stand up to sovereign countries. You know, that is a point of thought for all of us, that do we want media houses, management of these commercial homes, uh, they are running businesses, do we want them to be deciding on how things happen, or do we want rule of law to be the deciding factor? Let me give you one more example of how regulation works. We as lawyers, our legal education, the manner in which the colleges who are imparting legal education, what curriculum to follow, how they get recognition, how many students they can get, to their enrollment after completing the education, their enrollment as young lawyers, they're passing that All India Bar exam, they're following their professional ethics throughout their practice. You know who governs this? Bar Council, Bar Council of India, Bar Council of every state. And these are our peers. We elect them in office. We elect them to Bar Council, and they run, this whole mechanism of everything from legal education to legal practice, and everything in between is regulated by Bar Councils of a particular state, Bar Council of India, the pyramidal structure. But can they do it on their own? Has it to be left on the whims of how they have to run it? No, that is not how it works. There is a statutory mechanism. There is an act that there is an Advocates Act. There is Bar Council of India Act. There are regulations which are prescribed, and in terms of those regulations, the the statutory body that is consisting of lawyers elected to office are regulating that whole thing. So this is the kind of regulation now, the kind of regulation that is there for print media, for publishing houses, for cable TV networks. These are also similar kind of. So let us not get threatened. I mean, we are raising a boogie that, oh, regulation is going to come and it's going to kill everything. That's not going to happen. And if we are so antithetical to regulation, censorship is a misnomer. Using of that word censorship, to my mind and to my understanding as a student of law, is a misnomer, because we don't have a censor board, though in normal parlance we call it the censor board, but it is the film certification board. It certifies movies. And there is after these regulatory mechanisms, the rule of law prescribes us. If anybody is aggrieved, we can go into the system of justice delivery. We go into the courts of law, aggrieved by any orders that are passed by these regulatory mechanisms. And if we don't want regulatory mechanism for such important mediums with such high potential and such deep commercial interests, please, I'll urge all of you to see what has been the increase in the revenue and the business model of OTT platforms during the corona times. Should they be allowed to have a free run without any kind of regulation? And if yes, then why others? I mean, we are after all a country that is governed by the Constitution. So why shouldn't then we have equality for other mediums also? Let them all be in the same manner how what we decide for OTT platforms on social media. And despite being very strong and powerful mediums, these are they are not they're immune from misuse. They're not immune from abuse. And that is the reason why rule of law has to exist. I mean, it's you know, when I was a primary student, one of the very first debates that I participated in, the topic of that debate was science, whether it is a boon or a bane. Now, I studied in Kendriya Vidyalayas. This was like a format of debate that was followed. And every year or every 2 years, the first part of the debate topic used to change. So then it became television, whether it is a boon or a bane. Internet, whether it is a boon or a bane. Nuclear energy, whether it is a boon or bane. Every advancement of science, technology, artificial intelligence, whether it is a boon or a bane. I mean, artificial intelligence has changed our lives like no man's business. We are today uh, using artificial intelligence for the way we work, for the way we entertain, for the way we communicate with our colleagues, with our loved ones, with our mothers, with our children, grandparents, grandchildren. So everything has an aspect of technology. And you know what? Sometimes I think that if Elon Musk succeeds in taking us to Mars, he's doing a phenomenal job in all areas of this technology, and his vision is to colonize the Mars. So if he indeed succeeds in taking us to Mars, then we are going to be having this debate in a few years from now again, whether the colonies on Mars, should they be regulated, should they be under the some kind of a mandate of law, etc., or should it not be. So this is really not a debate about regulation versus no regulation, because we like our world to be regulated. We don't want to go back to the might is right and survival of the fittest. We want our regulatory mechanisms to be fair. We want them to be transparent. We want them to be well known. We want industry experts to be part of that regulatory mechanism. And ultimately, we want it to be responsible to the constitutional principles, to the justice delivery mechanism of the country. We are a democracy. Our constitutional principles are very, very sacred to us. We're not like China, where even the Winnie the Pooh, that's the Disney character, is banned because some media houses compared him with how he looks like the Chinese premier. Or we are not like the if last year, if you remember, there was a TikTok video that this girl made, and she was giving a tutorial on eye makeup. So this made a lot of news sometimes in the middle of the pandemic last year, where her TikTok video was garbed as disguised as a tutorial for eye makeup and how to do, and she had all the equipment and she was giving. And in the middle of the TikTok video, she highlighted the kind of oppression that was done by Chinese authorities, and she wanted her word to go out to the world, because everything is, and that is censorship. That is not regulation, that is censorship, because there she had to put her message in between that eye makeup, and then she goes back into that, because she would have, and she uh, passed through the filters of the censorship, because they must have seen the beginning of the video, end of the video, and in between. It was only when it made news in the West that her Instagram handle was her TikTok video where she had posted it was completely banned. She was taken away, and the world doesn't know what happened to her. Like the world doesn't know what happened to the earliest whistleblower doctors who spoke about the coronavirus. Now that is censorship. Now, thankfully, in the democratic countries, there is no room for that. We elect our governments in office. It is an expression of, they are our representatives. We put them in office, and we give them the authority to regulate the country in a mechanism of rule of law. And then ultimately, we have the separation of powers so strongly recognized as a basic structure of our constitution, that allows our judiciary to work in a completely independent, impartial manner, and to keep a check on excessive executive and legislative power. So I think I've covered aspects of it, and tried to share my thoughts with all of you. I think let's have some interaction and questions and answers. I'm again really thankful to all of you for allowing me this opportunity to share my thoughts.
Thank you very much, ma'am. Ma'am, there are some questions in the chat box. I'll read them out and you can answer them accordingly. So, first question is, in theaters, if any censor movie is released, there's no entry below 12 years, but coming to OTT, from child to senior citizen are using and they are looking for the same shows, whether they are if they are rated 18 plus, then also children do have access to them. So that's what he or she is asking. I don't know.
You're right. That is precisely the reason why we want a more robust regulatory mechanism. So, somebody was suggesting just the other day that there could be a system, because if you log into these OTT platforms, you log in with a login ID. There are names that are there, and when you log in with that, I mean, you set it up at your home. But if you have young children at home, and as a parent you want to regulate what they are watching, then there should be an option that should be available to the parents, that if your child has logged into your account, I mean somebody has logged into your account and watching, then that message should go, because parental control, I mean vulnerable ages have to be protected. They are vulnerable ages, and we don't want the future of our country to get impacted by what they see on media. Those vulnerable ages, they end up believing what they see. I mean, they're not discerning enough to understand and realize that this is just artistic impression of things. So there has to be a regulatory mechanism inbuilt. There has to be some provision made available where parents want to, there are options available for television networks where you can block particular channels. Now there are channels also on cable TV network which show content which is not suitable for children of impressionable ages, and there they are the parental lock system is allowed. So we will have to have these systems so that this problem, and this problem is a real problem. If you speak to parents, this is a very real problem, but then we need to find a mechanism to deal with it.
Thank you, ma'am. Another question is related to Facebook. As Facebook also has an age limit, but falsely, even children do that. They implicate a false age or input a false age, and they log in into it. So similarly, happens with OTT as well. So is there a solution to this?
Well, if somebody wants to break the law, the solution only lies in the the repercussions which are there for breaking of the law. But you are right. This has become too rampant. Laws will not prevent breaking people who want to break the law. Laws will prescribe a regulatory mechanism and prescribe consequences for breaking of that regulatory mechanism. But murder has been a crime since times immemorial. Has that stopped murders from taking place? It's not like this won't happen. And of course, I'm comparing it to something that is a very heinous crime, comparing it, and most children have their social media accounts. I know, I mean, all the children, that most of the children that I know around me, they have social media accounts, and it is very difficult to stop them because their friends are there, their peers are there. All that can happen is that this is an area where parents will have to keep a little more control. The justice delivery mechanism is barred for stepping into households from our homes, and rightly so. The home is the area for for the family to decide, family to discern. We have to find mechanisms. So I think the problem really is that parents these days obviously are less technologically savvy than the children. Children know all kinds of technology, so they are able to beat their parents and get ahead of this whole thing. I think I think things will find a solution to it. But it has to be done within the family. It cannot be outside. We can't. This is not a mechanism that we can have interference of the law enforcement mechanism. These are young children. In any case, the Juvenile Justice Act recognizes the fact that young children, they are not culpable even for heinous offenses. below a certain age. So it is because they don't have the mental capacity and the mental maturity to understand the consequences of their action, and the consequences of what lies ahead for them.
Thank you, ma'am. Ma'am, another question was related to the violence that follow after any movie is certified by the film certification, like that happened during Padmavat or the Jodha Akbar movie. So, what can we do for such violence that happened even after certification?
Well, this is a part and parcel of democracy. In democracy, because there is space and respect for people's voices, there will always be contrary points of view. I mean, our diversity, our pluralism also has this another aspect that not everyone will think alike. Your perception of what is right and what is obscene and what is spreading disaffection or hurting your culture, or hurting the god that you worship, is going to be different than mine. So these protests, I mean, protests are happening even right now. About the farmer protests are going on for a law that has been passed by our parliament. The parliament is debated. This is a law that has been passed. This is a law that has been long offing. You can't take away. See, protest is, and that protest mechanism should be there. Uh, Even Supreme Court has said that protest is the safety valve of a democracy. The problem really happens when these protests turn violent, when there is arson, when there is looting, when there is violence and there is mayhem. That is the problem. Now, any kind of protest, when it becomes violent, then that protest does not remain a protest within the confines of, within the contours of the democracy. Then it becomes a law and order situation. Then the people who are perpetrating that violence, they become criminals. They are in the hair of the law, and they must be punished. We need to have stronger mechanisms for these violent protests and violent happening in the name of protest, public property being looted and destroyed. We need accountability. So that is the only way. Rule of law has to come down with a stick when things become violent. That is the only way that sanctity of protest will also stay.
Thank you, ma'am. Ma'am, another question was, it has been observed that OTT is not regulated. Because of that, unnecessary swearing, unnecessary showing of obscene content has been very much proliferated, just because there is no regulation. So, for this is because of this we see that the need for regulation is enhanced. So what can we do to stop, what a particular regulation should be there to stop this kind of mindset of people that there's no regulation, we can do whatever we want? So that kind of mentality that we seen in OTT.
Ankita, regulation is yet to come. One has seen that this is a debate that's happening across the world. There are no firm regulations in place. Even in the most developed countries, even they are struggling and evolving the method of regulation that they want to prescribe on OTT platforms, on social media. So this is a work in action. In India also, the regulatory mechanism is being prepared. There are the Ministry of the Electronics Information Technology, MeitY, is, we all know, it is in a public domain, that they are looking at prescribing a regulation. They are going to take inputs from the industry experts, who will help out on framing of these regulations, because they are the people who know the factual aspects best. But to my mind, as a student of law, I think the manner in which it will be similar to the kind of certification that we have seen for other forms um, of broadcast. So there will be, it's not like it will uh, the age criteria will be defined, that once you are above a certain age, you are an adult, you are discerning enough, you have the mental maturity to understand and take these aspects. So I think something like that will come, Ankita, something similar to the kind of certification that is prescribed currently for other broadcasting mediums.
Thank you, ma'am. Ma'am, another question is relating to, as the OTT platforms are increasing, and increased even during, we cannot say increased during COVID times, but their use or the people's access to them has increased. But still, we can see that even in the certification things, there are many things that they get malicious side of the system. Am I audible?
Yes, Ankita, I mute myself when you speak.
Okay, okay, no problem, ma'am. So the question was, yeah, actually, I couldn't find what exactly the question is. One second. Huh. Why censorship are not getting applied on big budget movies and big celebrities act, and when they play a role of role model or they are the ideal, and it's not only the OTT platform eating such chunks, but many things have happened meanwhile in our Indian cinema. Why in the COVID times? That's what the person wants to say.
I couldn't get the question, Ankita. You'll have to repeat that for me, please.
Okay, ma'am, I'll repeat that. Actually, I could also not get what exactly he wants to say in his question, but I'll try. So, what I got from this is, in the COVID times, not only the OTT platforms has crossed their limits, even the big budget films or big celebrities have also crossed their limits beyond the censor, and censor has not stopped them. That's what I think. So he wants to say. And if you want, I can unmute him and he can ask his own question. He or she.
Sure. So let me try and answer, and you can unmute him after this. I think, see, we have to understand that in India, freedom of speech and expression is protected very strongly, very fiercely, and very robustly by Article 19(1)(a), and the interpretation to that article in the manner that it has been given by the Supreme Court and other constitutional courts across the years. We have seen that Supreme Court and other constitutional courts have always given the widest possible interpretation to this section when it comes to artistic creativity. So you mentioned these movies. I mean, these movies, there was a challenge that was put up for these movies in the court of law also, and the courts did not interfere because they said that artistic liberty has to be given into the widest sense. So interpretation of our constitutional principles is in such a manner that widest possible amplitude is given. But still, if there is violation of that, there are sections that are available. FIR can be lodged against them if any violation of the IPC sections is there, spreading hatred on religious grounds, incitement to an offense, spreading disaffection, or defamation issues. So, and under the Information Technology Act and under the Cable TV Networks Act, so there is a mechanism that is available. If anyone feels aggrieved, rather than taking to protest, a better way is to, I will tell you something. There's a speech of, can you mute yourself, Ankita? Thank you. There was a speech of Dr. B.R. Ambedkar on the day the draft of the Constitution was handed over to the Constituent Assembly. There was a drafting committee. Dr. Ambedkar was the head of that drafting committee, and they made and gave it to the. And his speech had something very interesting. He said that, again on protest it was. So he said that while we were governed by somebody who had colonized us, a foreign power, while we were not a sovereign country ourselves, we did not have self rule. Somebody else was ruling us and governing us and oppressing us. At that time, the forms of protest that we saw, of course, the freedom movement saw violent protests also, it saw peaceful protests also. In all forms, protests were there. So that protest was fine when the protest was happening against the foreign rule. But now that we have our own constitution in place that people of India are giving to people of India, we have self-governance. We decide who governs, who rules, and it is on our chosen principles that this country is running. Now, whoever has feels aggrieved by any action of institutions, of individuals, of other entities, there is a constitutional mechanism that is provided. That constitutional mechanism allows you to go straight to constitutional courts if there is violation of fundamental rights. So this is the important aspect, that the after self-governance, the constitutional remedies should be used more rather than the extra constitutional machinery for lodging a protest.
Thank you, ma'am. Ma'am, another question was the person was saying that we already have a lot of regulations relating to child pornography or copyright issues. So why there is a need for another regulations for specifically for OTTs?
Because OTT is a separate platform. OTT came after the regulations were all there, so it does not, it's falling in the cracks. It's not really regulated in that manner. Also, you can't apply the same regulatory mechanism to a platform which is fundamentally different and substantially different. Like I explained in the beginning, this is a pull format. So the push format, I mean, there is equality in Indian Constitution, is equal treatment of equals. So these OTT platform is not equal to the cable TV network or television or other mediums in that sense. And because they are unequals, you can't just put a same law and same regulation. It will be on the same lines theoretically, because those are also constitutional principles, other statutory laws. But then it will have to be a separate mechanism. Can't hear you, Ankita.
Sorry, ma'am. Actually, my mic was muted. So I was just saying that questions are getting repetitive in the chat box. They are all relating to the same thing, and you have answered it all. So I'm not going further with any other question. Now I would just like Mr. Rupam to present a vote of thanks for such a beautiful session. Mr. Rupam, can you just take over and present a note?
Am I audible?
Yes.
Thank you, Anika, for the honor again. The Amicus Curie family is really obliged to have you, ma'am, here with us and spending your valuable time with the budding lawyers and the professionals, and also thanking you for sparing your valuable time to engage with the law students on the important topic: should censorship be applied in the OTT platforms or not? We really feel honored to get an understanding of the topic from your experiences and thoughtful ideas. Last but not the least, I'd like to thank the entire team of the Amicus Curie for pulling up this national webinar on a successful manner. We hope to have more such session with you, ma'am, in the near future. And thank you once again, ma'am, for your time today.
Thank you so very much, Rupamji and Ankitaji, and your entire team. It was, I think, a very interesting topic that you chose, and I hope that we were able to have some meaningful discussion around this. Thank you for allowing me to share my thoughts. Bye.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you very much, ma'am.
Good luck. God bless.
Thank you, ma'am. All the participants, you can now leave the meeting. And thank you very much for joining. तर मैं अकल वकल